Hello and welcome to Good Deeds Real Estate with a Mission. I'm Diane Davidson from the Fine Homes Group at Keller Williams, and this is my partner, Bill Weidecker. So we're sitting here at this table in our little studio. Reminds me of a game we played with the kids when they were younger called What's Missing, where you everyone at the table closes their eyes. The one person closes their eyes and everyone else takes one thing off the table, and that person opens their eyes and has to decide what's missing.
This was when we were out to dinner at a restaurant.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there's no context what's
At home we
missing.
didn't have to entertain them there.
I'm missing.
Anyway, so that's what it reminds me of, because every week we do our podcast, I feel like there's more and more
There's
stuff
something
on the
new there.
table.
Yeah, well, it's my
Okay.
office. I get to do what I want.
So segue into what's missing. Today we're
Yes.
going to talk about the interpretations of offers and being very specific in when you're writing an offer for a buyer client in what's included, what's excluded, and then also working with the seller client, making sure we discuss upfront if there's anything that they want to take that's a fixed, what they're planning on leaving, just being really clear, because when it comes to the end of the transaction, close to the closing, oftentimes there are misunderstandings. And over the years, how many appliances have you bought that haven't ended up in your home?
I've invested in equipment. Let's put it that way. And the classic example was an agent that worked on my team sold a brand new construction house in Bedford, and the builder plumbed the house for central vac, and the buyers never put central vac in. And 2 years later, they sold the listing because they were moving back to the West Coast, and the agent that listed it, same agent, went through the house, noticed the receptacles, and just put central vac. And so it isn't always, and the buyers move in, the new buyers move in and go, where's the canister and all the equipment? They must have taken it in the truck by mistake. And the seller says, well, I never put it in, it was never there. And the agent said to me, what do we do? I said, well, who represented that there was central vac in the purchase agreement? She said, well, I represented it in the listing offering and it got put into the purchase agreement. What do we do? I said, we buy a central vac.
Yeah.
And so that's often the case. Is it's really important that you look, if you're the seller, what you're representing, you're including, and you make sure you understand what you're including with your agent. And if you're the buyer, it's the same thing, right? You don't assume. You got to make sure that it's whatever your offer is it's got to have it there.
Yep.
Do you have any more stories?
Oh God, yeah. Washer dryer. Yep. That was in the South End years and years ago. And actually, I was a manager at the time, but I was covering an open house for the listing agent. So it wasn't really my fault, but did what you had to do. We did what we had to do. It's interesting too, though, the opposite of what's included and you expect to stay. Sometimes sellers don't want to exclude things. Like it's kind of one of those, I want to say Murphy's Law, we'll call it that. These sellers did not want to take the washer and dryer with them, and it was like brand new. They were meticulous sellers, also here in Bedford. It was maybe about 5 years old, and they kept it perfectly, like not a bit of lint. Anyway, but they didn't want to take it to their new house in Vermont, so they were definitely leaving it. Well, the buyers did the walkthrough. They wanted to bring their own washer and dryer from wherever they were coming from. So the good news there is that we were able to put it on the office intranet, and someone at Keller Williams got a free washer and dryer. But then as a listing agent, you're thinking, God forbid they go down the staircase and hit the banister and on and on and on. So as much as there are times when sellers want to take things buyers want to be left, the opposite is true as well. When sellers do not want to be bothered or don't need it where they're going, and buyers don't need it to be left there. So it goes in both directions, that we need to be careful, and it's all about expectations, right?
And perception. So sometimes you'll get a seller that says, we just assumed they'd want the ping pong table.
Exactly.
There's buyers that are like, I don't want that under it. Even
I'd be
give
that
me
buyer.
mine. Yeah.
And some of this was before Craigslist and before Facebook Marketplace. So we had something as agents, 20 years ago, we were stuck with it. We were stuck with getting rid of it.
Finding
a home for it.
Yeah,
and it would cost money to get things out.
It's
which
short.
is now where you actually make money when you get things out.
Yeah.
Anyway, any other tips? Anything? I mean, they're typically things that are included that sometimes we think we don't need to touch on, but sellers, like let's say it's a dining room chandelier would be a good example, or a light fixture, right?
Obviously, if there's something that's excluded, you got to make sure that you have, that you clearly delineate that it's excluded. And sometimes it's helpful to explain why.
Mm-hmm.
because if it's a family heirloom or it's something that has an emotional attachment to the property owner, it's easier for the buyer to understand that, because they can put themselves in
Yep.
in that shoe.
Yeah.
In those shoes, rather. And then on top of this is one thing that I've always found kind of humorous is that property owner of 20 to 25 years or 30 years who's got every can of paint that they've ever used,
Oh,
they just
God, yeah.
decide the new owners will want these, even though some of the paint is not on the walls anymore. It's just, they just leave all of it. And, you know, most of the time that's met with, you know, a little bit of anxiety, because the buyers are like, I don't want any of it. And I don't want to, this is
Hard to get
waste.
rid of.
Yeah, it's hard to get rid of.
Well, the other thing too, Bill, I'm sure you know this, but paint when it's on the wall changes the color, right? So you're better off to scrape someplace to scrape the actual paint off and have it color match, because the can that's 5 years old, that paint in there will not match. I mean, different planes, you're okay, but you will have to paint a whole wall with what's in that can versus maybe being able to touch up. So.
No, I didn't know. See, I'm learning. I didn't know
That's why
that.
we do these things.
It's
We
just
can
for
learn from
me.
each other.
This is for me. Okay, and others are watching.
So if you're an agent, just be clear, so you're setting expectations, and make sure you ask sellers and ask buyers what their expectations are. And then if you're a consumer, make sure your agent has those discussions with you, yes?
Yes, and the purchase agreement there's a line in the purchase agreement that says, this agreement alone and fully, completely expresses the obligations of the parties. And what's included, if there's a verbal representation, get it in writing.
Right.
I want this included, I don't want it included, both ways.
Yeah. And things like microwave sitting on a counter, that's not a fix, right? If someone says all kitchen appliances, so it means
Specificity.
Specificity is very important. I also always put in kitchen appliance, I list the washer and dryer separately, because for some reason, some people don't think of those as appliances.
Yeah.
So, anyway, all those little tricks of the trade. Well, this was fun, and hopefully all the appliances we buy in the future end up in one of our places and not somebody else's.
So does that mean we can get rid of all the paint that we have because it doesn't match anymore
Just
in the
figure out what to
cans?
do with it.
Yeah.
I guess there's some stuff you put in to harden the paint, and then you can dispose of it in any transfer station.
Again, I'm learning.
Okay, well, I'm making it up.
Thank you.
Actually, one of our teammates told me that. Okay, well, that's it for today. Fascinating stuff. We can play what's missing now. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform or subscribe to our YouTube channel.